have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
What's going on, everybody? I wanted to get on here and make a video. I don't want to let this day go by without wishing everybody a happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Happy birthday to this iconic figure in this world. The man that was about nonviolence across the whole world.
Nonviolent direct action is a most powerful approach.
My dad, Dr. Emil McClario, saved his life when he got stabbed in Harlem. September 20th, 1958.
He was stabbed in New York while autographing copies of his first book.
I heard someone say, you Reverend King, and I didn't hardly look up, I just said yes, and by that time, she leaned over and stabbed me, and of course it was a near fatal stabbing.
My dad rushes to Harlem Hospital, goes into the operating room. He sees the knife in his chest, touching his aorta. If Dr. King would have sneezed or coughed, he would have drowned in his own blood. My father removed 2 ribs from Dr. King's side, managed to get in and get the knife out. Saved Dr. King's life. 3.5 months later, my dad gets a beautiful letter from Dr. King thanking him. Dr. King inspired me when Dr. King tapped me and said, "Ronnie, my name is King, but I'm not a king."
We will continue to protest in the same spirit of love and nonviolence and passive resistance.
The right is the language of the unheard, and America has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened.
That violence comes into being in this transition. Unborn generations will be the recipients of a long and desolate night of bitterness.
This is a man that was used by God to utterly destroy the line of racism between whites and blacks. There's so many things that we can say about this brother, this man of God, this minister. The only thing that he really was concerned about was doing the will of God, whatever God had planned for him.
A long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will.
And that was to utterly destroy racism in this world. And he was the man that God used, even though I understand that we still have racism in this world because the enemy is still roaming around in this world. So there's no way we're going to be completely delivered from, this world is never going to be completely delivered from any type of sin as long as the enemy, the devil, is running around here rampant. I got something I want to read to you guys. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In the United States holiday, the 3rd Monday in January, honoring the achievements of Martin Luther King Jr., a Baptist minister who advocated the use of nonviolent means to end racial segregation. He first came to national prominence during a bus boycott by African Americans in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955. He founded the Christian Leadership Conference in 1957 and led the 1963 March on Washington, the Million Man March. I mean, we all know about that. The most influential of African American civil rights leaders during the 1960s, he was instrumental in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination in public accommodations, facilities, and employment, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. King was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1964. worst days of everybody's life, or this world's life. He was assassinated on April 4th in 1968. Those are some of his accolades. I mean, obviously we could sit here. This video would be so long. We could keep talking about the wonderful things, the way that God used this man to affect this world everywhere, every which way that he possibly can. I got some more. It says, almost immediately after King's death, there were calls for a national holiday in his honor. Well deserving. Beginning in 1970, a number of states and cities made his birthday, January 15th, a holiday. Although legislation for a federal holiday was introduced in Congress as early as 1968, there was sufficient opposition on racial and political grounds to block its passage. In 1983, legislation making the third Monday in January a federal holiday finally passed, and the first observance nationwide in 1986. The day is usually celebrated with marches and parades, with speeches by civil rights and political leaders. So that's just a little bit of information on the great works that this man provided for us. So I know all of us look at it like we had a day off, which is great if you had a day off. But everything that this man had went through, just for this to take place, us getting a little day off at work is not even compared. It pales in comparison to what this man had to go through. This man was ridiculed. He was beaten. He was stabbed.
Stabbed in New York while autographing copies of his first book.
I heard someone say, "Are you Reverend King?" And I didn't hardly look up. I just said yes. And by that time, she leaned over and stabbed me. And of course, it was a near fatal stabbing.
He was kicked. I mean, anything that he had rocks thrown at him, and this man did not react with violence. Non-violence.
We will continue to protest in the same spirit of love and non-violence and passive resistance.
That was his thing. That was the thing that God put in his spirit, and no matter what, he never reacted in violence.
No matter what happened, he was cool, calm, collected, never got violent. He fought with his mind.
In the nonviolent movement, the end is to convert the opponent and to bring about a society where all men will live together as brothers and every man will respect the dignity and worth of human personality.
Not reacting in violence in a situation where somebody is coming at you or trying to do something to you, or whether it's not physical. It don't have to be physical. It can be mental. It can be verbally. But he never reacted. It was nonviolence. That's the word. That's the message that he was spreading throughout the world, was nonviolence, nonviolence. And it ended up paying off for him, because God rewarded him for him staying faithful and continuing to allow God to use him, for him to complete the mission that God placed before Martin Luther King Jr. We want to say happy birthday to you, sir. You are sorely missed. What a wonderful blessing that you were to this world. What you have, the doors that you have opened up for not just black people, but just the whole world in general. You be blessed. Everybody watching this video, God bless.
A long life, longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will